Welcome back, deep divers. Ready to dive in again. Today, we're tackling a fascinating topic, the connection between autism and dysarthria. We often talk about the communication challenges faced by individuals on the autism spectrum, but what happens when it's the physical act of speaking that becomes the hurdle?
That's where our deep dive begins. See, we're not just talking about difficulty finding the right words, which is something many people associate with autism. Dysarthria really impacts the physical execution of speech.
So give me a picture. What might that sound like?
Well, imagine someone's trying to talk, but their words, they come out slurred or mumbled. Or their volume, it's all over the place, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet. And their pace might be off too, like their brain's struggling to get those signals to their mouth muscles to form the words.
It's like that game, where you try to say something with a mouthful of marshmallows, everything just gets jumbled up.
Exactly.
Well,
Except, of course, for someone with dysarthria, it's not a game, it's every day. And when this is happening in someone who's also on the autism spectrum, diagnosis can be tricky.
because the symptoms can overlap, right? How can you separate the communication challenges from the autism from the ones specifically caused by the dysarthria?
That is the million-dollar question, and it often takes a whole team of specialists to really figure it out. We have to look at all the possible causes. And one big theory revolves around motor control, or really, the problems with it.
Because both conditions, autism and dysarthria, they can involve motor impairments, is that right?
Absolutely. Think of it as a disconnect, right?
Good.
The brain wants to do something, but the body is not quite getting the message. This can affect everything from big movements like walking to the super precise movements needed to speak clearly.
And if I'm remembering right, our source material also mentions sensory processing differences as a potential link, and this is where I get a bit lost.
Okay, so picture this. The world feels like this huge wave of sensory input, bright lights, loud sounds, even clothes feel scratchy. It's all too much. Now try to coordinate all the movements needed for speech on top of that sensory overload.
It's like trying to have a conversation while riding a roller coaster in a wind tunnel during a fireworks show. Okay, so we've got this connection, but what can we actually do with this information? How do we help?
That's the empowering part. There's no one magic solution, but there are so many ways to support individuals with both autism and dysarthria to communicate better. And one of the most powerful tools we have is speech therapy.
So it's like physical therapy, right? But instead of working on those big muscle movements, it's all about strengthening those fine motor skills needed for speech.
You got it. Speech therapists, they're like coaches for your mouth muscles. They use exercises to help improve articulation, clarity, and just the whole communication toolbox.
Our source material also talks about assistive technology, and I gotta say, some of the stuff seems straight out of Star Trek. We're talking about tools that can really bridge that communication gap in amazing ways, aren't we?
Absolutely. Think like speech-to-text software, where someone can type what they want to say and the device speaks it for them. It's like having a personal translator for your thoughts.
That's incredible. It seems like technology is always evolving. What other innovations are out there that have you excited?
Oh, we're seeing amazing things with visual supports too. Imagine you've got these personalized communication boards or tablets with customizable symbols and phrases. Especially for visual learners, these can be total game changers.
But I imagine assistive technology isn't one size fits all, is it? It's about finding the right fit for each individual.
Exactly. And it's not always about the latest, shiniest gadget either. Sometimes low-tech options, like picture cards or sign language, can be incredibly effective.
Mm.
The key is working together, the individual, their family, therapists, everyone, to find the best tools and strategies.
So we've talked about speech therapy, we've covered assistive technology, but our deep dive wouldn't be complete without at least mentioning other approaches, right? Like, what about medication or sensory integration therapy?
You're right, we can't forget those. Medication might be an option to address any underlying medical conditions that could be contributing to the dysarthria. And sensory integration therapy. That can be a game changer in helping individuals better process and manage those overwhelming sensory experiences.
And this is where having this knowledge is so empowering for our listeners, right? It's like having a map to navigate this world of support and advocate for themselves or for their loved ones.
I completely agree. And it goes beyond just knowing the options. It's about really understanding how these approaches work, the nuances, and how they can be tailored to each person's unique needs. That's what leads to informed decisions and a united front for better support.
And that's where things start to get really interesting when we think about the bigger picture, don't you think? It's like we're zooming out now, right? We started with the individual experience, and now we're looking at the whole picture, like how we as a society think about communication and disability.
You've got it. And when we really try to understand and accommodate different communication styles, we're not just helping people with specific diagnoses. We're making the world a more welcoming place for everyone.
It's like, what's it called? The curb cut effect, those ramps in the sidewalk originally designed for wheelchairs.
Right.
But then it's like, wow, they help people with strollers, delivery people, even skateboarders. Everybody wins.
I love that example. Designing for different needs, it often helps everyone in ways we don't expect. Like when we embrace things like closed captions, visual aids, or even just speaking clearly and being patient, communication becomes more accessible for everybody.
It makes you wonder, though, what if we changed how we think about what's normal when it comes to communication? Would we even need these accommodations as much?
Now, there's a question to ponder. If we challenge those assumptions about what's considered typical communication, who benefits, and what new doors could that open? Something to think about.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about, that's for sure.
Hmm.
A huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise today and for helping us understand this connection between autism and dysarthria.
It's been my pleasure, really.
And to our listeners, keep those questions coming. Dive deeper into the topics that fascinate you. And remember, even small steps toward understanding can make a big difference. Until next time, deep divers.